Well, he can talk the talk. Now we got to see if he can walk the walk. This is today's Arsenal transfer show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal transfer show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and listening. If you could drop a like, I should say, on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. That would be massively appreciated too. If you're listening on catch up, you can hype the video. And of course, you can leave us a 5-star review on either of Spotify or iTunes as well. So thank you so much for those that already have and those that are planning to and those that will. Really appreciate you all. Good morning to Steve, to Lee, to Tom, Glenn in the chat box this morning, Dara, Pat, we've got NSW and Natty Tom, we've got Ken, we've got Paul, Maria and Zoom, we've got Martin and Gunnar Maximius, we've got Sid, we've got Matt G, we've got Trader Mike in the chat box, Brian and Ara Silky. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate you all being here and listening, and the rest of you as well. I can't say hello to you all. But I appreciate you all being here all the same. Yesterday was, of course, press conference day, and it was rather impressive press conference day. I think, it was one of the most impressive press conferences I think that we've had this season, and it needed to be because, of course, the result at the weekend was it was significant, wasn't it? The result of the weekend, and it was not ideal at all. And it was the most damaging, I think, result of the season so far that has completely changed the context and the complications, if you like, around Arsenal's hopes of winning the title. I want to play you this first clip. I usually read the press conferences to you. I'm going to play you this clip of the start because I can't read the comments that Arteta made in the way that he said them. So I'm going to play you the clip. I'm sure most of you seen it already. But for those that haven't and those that need to see it again, I'm just going to play you this clip of Arteta. This was the first response when asked about the reaction of his team from the weekend.
The reaction has been excellent. We took a moment to bring the temperature down, to pause and to reflect and ask two questions. One is, how do we feel? And how do I feel myself? And then how we want to live the next 4 months. And it was so encouraging and beautiful because what came out of that is very simple. We have earned the right to be in a great position in 4 competitions. And in the next 4 months, we're going to live and play with enjoyment, with a lot of courage, and with the conviction that we're going to win it. And this is going to be the mindset and where we're going to put the energy. And I'm just hoping that everybody that is related to this club, especially our supporters, jump on that boat, because this is the way that we're going to live the next 4 months, because we deserve to live like this.
So that was Arteta speaking at the press conference earlier on yesterday. And I said that was the answer to the first question that he was asked for. What has the response been? What has the reaction been on the training ground since that defeat? And this is what I said. This is what I've labelled, today's show. You can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? And I guess we'll find out. We've walked the walk so far this season and sit top of the table come January 28th. But I thought it was quite important when he started off by saying, bringing the temperature down to start things off, because naturally there's a lot of regret, anger. Certainly I was angry. I think you could tell by the show that I did the day after the game. There's been a lot of angry reactions, of course, I think as well, after that game at the weekend. And I'm not surprised if you felt angry after the game. And I'm not surprised that the players probably did too. There's some videos going around about how some of the players reacted after the full-time whistle, Gabriel in particular, and that temperature being brought down and then being used, that energy used to redirect it forwards and into the rest of this season. And the nature of press conferences are strange, right? Press conferences are odd environments because they are opportunities for the manager to get across a message. But equally, when you offer up kind of these insights in the idea that there was conversations, there was a meeting between the players, immediately, in kind of like from my perspective, and certainly how I've experienced these press conferences, in the minds of those sitting in the room, it's like, oh, he's given us some information there. There's a meeting going on. Now we're curious about this meeting. And it did lead the press conference to kind of then ask several questions. There was a lot of questions around that meeting. And I did get the sense that kind of Arteta closed up a bit. He definitely closed up a bit with the more questions that were asked about that meeting. Unsurprisingly so. He doesn't tend to like to give too much of a glimpse behind the curtain. And he did there, and then was obviously questioned on that and what went on. He obviously was very clear in making it. Well, he was very clear in making it sound as if this isn't a regular occasion. It's not that this is a regular occasion, that they regularly have meetings, and they had one before Inter Milan, and they've had ones, effectively weekly. But it was quite a significant one, and the reaction, of course, was significant enough. There was also an open training session yesterday, of which I was there. We didn't see William Saliba, we didn't see Jurriën Timber, and we didn't see Mikel Merino. Now, both Declan Rice and Mikel Merino are suspended for tonight's game, so they cannot be involved in that game. They picked up their second yellow cards in Milan, so they are not able to play in this game. However, there was questions asked of Arteta about Timber and Saliba. He said that they both have niggles, is how he described it. They both have some niggles, and it's a good opportunity now that we make a different kind of work with them to get them in the best possible conditions that we can offer them, of course, for the weekend, that would be. And the hope is that, of course, that they can be ready for the weekend. And we sincerely hope that is going to be the case, that they're going to be ready for the weekend and back for that game against Leeds, because they're exceptionally important players, are Saliba and Timber for us. But the expectation is, of course, that Mosquera and Ben White will be in tonight to play against Kairat. I was like, no questions really on Kairat. There was a Kazakhstan journalist there. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and really nice guy. And he obviously did ask about Kairat as well, and like how they prepared for them and analysed them. And Arteta said, we look at every single game in the same way, and how we can be as best prepared as feasibly possible for those games. And it's going to be intriguing to see how Arsenal do set up tonight, how many youngsters are involved, and we'll talk about what lineup I would go for in a second as well, and what lineup I would choose if I did have to choose in the game. But there was quite a reaction to Arteta's press conference overall, and it was no surprise to kind of see a lot of people coming out and speaking about that press conference. Ian Wright putting onto Instagram, leaving in the comments of that presser, with you and the boys until the end, boss. And it was a galvanizing presser. It was a galvanizing message. It's not going to land for everybody, and certainly it didn't yesterday for everybody. I put a tweet out in the evening that was just like Arteta's best conference of the season, so far, in my opinion. And it needed to be, and it absolutely did need to be. It really did need to be his best conference of the season. He needed to set the record straight. He needed to galvanize the troops. He needed to get the message out, and he did that. But it's not going to convince everybody, because not everybody likes Mikel, and you can obviously see the number of replies to that tweet. I'm surprised how many people reacted in the way that they. I say I'm surprised. I'm not surprised really about how many people reacted to it. But if you want to laugh, go and read some of the comments, and it will tell you exactly when I've been saying, some of these fans and this fan base are not ready. They're not ready for a title race. If you ever need evidence as to why that is true, just go read some of the replies. And it will tell you exactly what I've been talking about for quite some time. But yes, we then spoke to Christian Norgaard as well. We spoke to Norgaard, and like before, we spoke to Mikel Arteta. And it was an opportunity. When it's the players, sometimes, especially players that aren't playing all that regularly in the team at the moment, like Norgaard, you often kind of get more light-hearted questions. There was a really good question to him about Martin Odegaard and like his thoughts on him as a captain, and he spoke very defensively of Odegaard as well, and gave him that opportunity to say just how brilliant he is. And then when you speak or hear from any player in the team, and they're asked about Martin, they cannot talk more highly of him. I do find it ridiculous that anybody is even considering partway through a season where currently we are where we are, stripping him of the captaincy, and that conversation is redundant, and it's always been made redundant by the way in which his own teammates talk about him. But yeah, in more of a light-hearted question, and there was more of a serious question about like the Scandinavian culture and the group of Scandinavian players that are at the club. And he said, how he would like to see more Scandinavian players join Arsenal. But there was a viral video at the start of the season. You may or may not have seen it from JJ from Tifo, where Norgaard says his name differently in the 2 press days, the media days that he does at the start of the season. He says Norgaard last season, and this start he said Nago. So I got that cleared up.
And at the start of the season, when you did your media day and you had to pronounce your name, there's the famous kind of viral clip went around actually where you pronounced your name differently last season compared to this season.
Did I?
If you're aware of that.
No, I didn't.
Do you want to put it to bed and tell people how you pronounce your name?
So I have pronounced my name 2 different ways, or in like beginning of last season and beginning of this season. Okay. So I think I've probably pronounced it in an English way and then in a Danish way. So Christian Norgaard would be the English way, and then Christian Norgaard would be the Danish way.
Right, gotcha.
So I don't think I've made 2 different Danish ones. Then that's on me then, if so.
So yeah, there you go. I think that we all kind of knew that was the case, and that it was Norgaard, if you're pronouncing it kind of as, you know, you boring Brit, or if you are indeed Danish, you're pronouncing it Nago, and that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, it was quite a funny one during the presser, and at the start of the season, it was funny. Obviously, seeing some of the clips, and JJ's video was the inspiration behind that question. But yes, returning to the broader aspects of the press conference and overall yesterday's stories as well. I want to go straight into part 2, which is going to be looking at this lineup and more right after this. So, yeah, Norgaard is indeed part of the lineup for the game tonight. He needs to play more. I think we all are in agreement that Norgaard has been underused this season, significantly underused this season. And I think that he could have been more of an asset to us, especially in games where we've needed to see out fixtures and to be a little bit more secure. Premier League experience, playing in that defensive midfield position. I think we have really. I think if he was Jorginho, Arteta would be using him, I think, more often. But he's not Jorginho. But I think he should be used a lot more than he is. And he's in the team tonight, and hopefully, once again, he will provide more evidence as to why, or rather, how, and certainly why he's been underused, being proven to be the wrong way to go about it in terms of what Arteta's done so far. But looking at Madueke, Havertz, Martinelli being the front 3 there. Madueke, Martinelli didn't play at all at the weekend. Madueke came on at the end. Havertz has to play in this game. Like, Havertz has to play in this game. If Havertz isn't involved either from the start or from the bench, or if he's not in the squad at all, then we can start asking some serious questions about his fitness and about where he is. But the expectation, the hope is that he will play and that he will be involved. But I'm very, very, very much looking forward to seeing, hopefully, Havertz back in the team. I think it's a big game for Eze. Of course, it's difficult in the midfield because with no Rice and no Marino, because they're both suspended. I think that leaves Arsenal very short in terms of options for the midfield. So, yeah, Eze and Ødegaard together, Norgaard at CDM. The back 4, MLS at left back, White at right back, Mosquera and Calafiori. It's a good opportunity to give Calafiori minutes in a position where he shouldn't be too active. If we're being honest, Arsenal should dominate possession, but if he's playing at left back, of course, he'd be expending himself quite significantly. Calafiori in this mould should not have to exert as much energy in this particular game. I might be proven wrong, but that's my expectation. Kepa, of course, has not played any Champions League games so far, but with Chelsea's second leg, or the second leg against Chelsea next week in the League Cup semi-final at the Emirates, it's a good opportunity to kind of give him some more regular minutes and keep him, alive and well, if you know what I mean, in terms of his fitness and sharpness for that game next week. So I don't expect him to be too busy, but Kepa, White, Mosquera, Calafiori, MLS, the back 4, and goalkeeper, Norgaard, Eze, and Ødegaard as the midfield 3, and then Madueke, Havertz, and Martinelli as the front 3. Let's get some of your predictions in the chat box for tonight's game against Kairat. Almaty. The headlines are almost writing themselves. If Arsenal do get beaten, Kairat Almighty is there for the taking, isn't it? So, let's wait and see what happens. But I'm expecting a good win, 4-5-0. I should be looking at really for Arsenal. That's not a disrespect to Kairat. I was speaking to a Kazakh journalist yesterday who was saying, what do you think, 7-8-1? And I was like, I don't know if it'd be 7 or 8-1, but maybe like 4 or 5-0. I'll be looking at for this game, even with Arsenal changing a serious number of their players. Temi says 3-0. NSW says 2-0. Luke says 3-0. Barry says 3-0. Eddie's going for a 4-0 win. Knowledge says 4-1. Ken says 4-0. Chris is going for a 5-0 Havertz double. Thomas says 3-0. Temi's going for 3-0, as we know. No reverse psychology from Temi today. That's just no nonsense. Get the win, move on. Cleo says 7-0. Aoife says 6 or 7-0 in this game. Jeff says 2-1. Dyer says 5-0. Nat says 5-1. Sid says 3-0. Easy Al says 4-0. Plenty of positive results, which doesn't surprise me at all. I am hoping that we see a very competent performance and a very ruthless and clinical display that, of course, will see Arsenal complete the Champions League phase, having won all of their 8 games, which is never been done before. Arsenal will be the first team ever to do that in the first iteration of this competition. So a good opportunity to set another record, to lay down a marker ahead of the knockouts. And Arsenal then, of course, having confirmed already a top 2 spot, but can confirm top spot, will be playing against the team, I believe, that finishes 16th. If they play against the team, well, it'll be interesting because I think it's the team that finishes 16th will play against the team that finishes 17th in the playoff. I might be wrong. I think that's how it's done. And then Arsenal will play against that team. So who knows? But there's a lot of games tonight in the Champions League because they're all being played at the same time because there's so much that can still happen. Athletic Club against Sporting, Liverpool against Karabag, Barcelona against Copenhagen, Monaco against Juve, Ajax against Olympiacos, PSG against Newcastle, Dortmund against Inter, Napoli against Chelsea, Frankfurt against Spurs, Atletico Madrid against Bodo, Leverkusen against Villarreal, Arsenal against Kairat, Paphos against Slavia Prague, Manchester City against Galatasaray, Club Brugge against Marseille, Benfica against Real Madrid, Union Saint-Gilloise against Atalanta, and PSV against Bayern Munich. So, yeah, the teams sitting currently in 16th and 17th are Dortmund and Galatasaray. However, I expect that to change. It's going to be very difficult to know where this is going to end up or how Arsenal are going to... who Arsenal might potentially face in the next round in the last 16 after the playoffs. The playoffs take place in the 2 weeks commencing the 17th of February, I believe. So, yeah, plenty of football still to be played and plenty still to be decided. But Arsenal will be rewarded by finishing in these top 2 spots with a home second leg in every single knockout round that they qualify for. So, plenty to be excited about and a real opportunity and advantage in the competition that Arsenal have earned for themselves, which is really, really key as well. What else is key is, of course, that you keep yourself safe, secure, and protected while surfing the internet. And you can do that by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner and getting yourself the #1 security VPN that there is that you can get your hands on. Listen to your favorites while you're abroad in any of the territory supported by Nord and shield your data from snoopers and criminals, which you should be doing anywhere that using a public Wi-Fi service, perhaps in a cafe or a hotel or a train or anywhere that you're hopping onto a public Wi-Fi service. So please do go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, get yourself a significant discount for 1 or a 2-year plan and 30 days money back guarantee if you're not happy with the service for any reason. There is that available to you as well. Right, let's go to part 3, your questions and more, right after this. Right, this is part 3 of today's show. I'm only going to be around for the next 10, 15 minutes or so answering your questions. Got a really hectic day, of course, with the game this evening. A lot of appointments throughout the day as well, meetings. So do bear with us that it's going to be a slightly shorter show than the hours that we've been going on all week. So do accept my apologies for that. But let's not waste any more time and go and tackle as many of your questions as we can. So get them into the chat box now. Use a capital Q. It helped them stand out. Temi says, what's happened to Ødegaard? I think we can ask that question about Ødegaard and many other players. You know, there's been a real dip in recent weeks so far. He came back from injury so strong. He got those 3 goal contributions in 3 games. And then, of course, we've seen kind of an overall dip. I think it's a need of him to be taken out the limelight a little bit and then be reintroduced and kind of be given a little bit of a respite. But Arteta tends to see him as a favourite and will look to play him into form. Matthew says, do you think the numbers are important and should you be asking Arteta more questions about numbers? Good question, Matthew. I didn't even tell you what question I asked Arteta yesterday. And it was, if I can find it off just the hand of where it is now. Numbers. That's the word. That's how I find it. So yeah, I said in terms of attacking players in the league, numbers aren't quite important. Yeah, that's fine. We've done that. Can I ask about those numbers? So here we go. So first of all, I said use the word fun a lot in the opening monologue that you said, and you've got the biggest squad now that you've ever had as a manager. Is it fun to have that many players, or like when we spoke to Christian a few seconds ago, is the challenge and the difficulty of the emotion of leaving players out sometimes ever too much? He says, no, it's very enjoyable, and they make it enjoyable for the type of characters that we have. But as well, the way that they live their profession, how much they want to win with us, and that's the only way. It's not about the numbers. It's about the quality of the numbers and the players that we have, and the same with the staff. So it's not about numbers. And when he said it's not about numbers, I then became very conscious because I was then going to ask him a question about numbers. So I said, when it comes to the idea of stats behind your forwards, and I was kind of tapping away at my laptop before the press conference trying to work this out, and I managed to get the stats, which was in the last 10 Premier League appearances that your 7 forwards have had. So that's Gyökeres, Jesus, Saka, Madueke, Eza, Trossard, and Martinelli. I'd put Eza in with the forwards because I just think he is a forward for me. I'd want to see him in those attacking positions. And he's played in those attacking positions, of course. So those 7 players in each of their last 10 Premier League appearances, so 70 games in total, they've returned just 10 goals. So at the moment, those 7 players are returning a goal every 7 appearances between them, which is not ideal. And not ideal at all. Can I just ask, why do you think that is happening? And what is it that needs to change so that those numbers go up? And he said, well, it's clearly every situation, every player is different. Obviously, the level of efficiency that we showed in certain actions, it hasn't helped to raise those numbers higher. Some others because we need to produce more for them as well. So it's a combination of different factors, but it's a positive way to look at it. Even though without this, look where we are. So we're trying to undo that and improve in that area, and then the margin will be bigger, which I thought was quite interesting. I was quite pleased, actually, because usually he tends to kind of just skip around and kind of bat these questions away. But if you listen, you'll see that he doesn't do that. He says very clearly, the finishing's not been good enough. The creativity for those players has not been good enough either. And that they need to undo those actions, because if they're able to improve on that, then the margin, of course, will be more significant than it is right now. He recognizes that finishing's not good enough. He recognizes that the service for those players, he's saying, he doesn't feel is good enough. What needs to change? Those 2 aspects need to change. We need to be better at finishing, and we need to be better in creating opportunities for those players as well. But he rightly points out that despite those actions, Arsenal sit where we sit right now. And if we can fix those problems, well, obviously he's sitting top right now with those problems existing. If we can fix those issues, then obviously the opportunity and the potential is there for Arsenal to really explode, is the word that he often does use. Mark says, in yesterday's show, you spoke of our slump in the number of the last 3 games, but it seems that we slump every January. Have you done a comparison to past seasons? No, I haven't done a comparison to past seasons, but Sam Dean has looked at those kind of games and those slumps. I haven't looked at how our slumps are in those fixtures, but he tweeted on Monday, 5 games without a win in January in 21-22, 4 games without a win in January, February in 22-23, 1 win in 7 games in December, January in 23-24, and 1 win in 5 games last season in January. So we tend to have this winter slump. The issue in the past has been that when we've had these winter slumps, it's seen us fall behind our rivals, or they've closed the gap to an even smaller number than we have had. So we've now just got to hope that this is the shortest slump of all of the slumps that we've had in recent years, and that we can end that with this game against Leeds this weekend. So fingers crossed that is going to happen during these upcoming games against Leeds and Chelsea and Sunderland. D says, that's what I'm saying yesterday. It's across the board. The players, the more natural, creative and instinctive players seem to be affected most regarding what? As always, when I jump into kind of a midway conversation in the chat box, Ødegaard needs to be more unpredictable. He has that in him. It's the instructions from Mikel to be one-dimensional. I don't think it's that personally. I don't think it's the instruction. I think that there is a psychological block at the moment in this team. And I think that what Arteta said at the start of his press conference yesterday was showing exactly what needs to be done to remove that block. You just need to listen to what he says in the opening statement of that press conference, that they're trying to remove it. He says, the question was, how do you feel and how do I feel? And then obviously, how are we going to live the next 4 months? It was so encouraging and beautiful because what came out of that was very simple. We have earned the right to be in a great position in 4 competitions. And in the next 4 months, we're going to live and play with enjoyment, with a lot of courage, with the conviction that we're going to win it. And that is going to be the mindset of where we're going to put the energy. And I'm just hoping that everybody that is related to this club, especially our supporters, jump on that boat, because it is the way that we're going to live the next 4 months, because we deserve to live like this. It is about playing with courage, playing with the will and the want to win, and playing with conviction. I don't think we've been playing with conviction recently. And he is trying now to get this conviction into the team, to play with more bravery. There's a really good bit of analysis where a pass was not played by Zubimendi to Declan Rice before the mistake that he made that led to the goal that Man United equalised with their first goal on Sunday. Declan Rice makes this run through the midfield, massive space opens up, the pass is there, the conviction is not, and Zubimendi plays the pass to Saliba instead of going forwards. We need to see more conviction, we need to see more bravery, we need to see greater levels of courage, and that is what Arteta is talking about there. That's what he wants. It's not by design that we're not playing with conviction. It is clearly something that is not of a level good enough, and he feels has not been good enough as a result of that, and that's why he's saying that. Ian says, we are still in a leading position and everyone would bite their hand off to be in this position if given the opportunity at the beginning of the season. So let's embrace the challenge and go for it. Absolutely. Thomas says, I think Odegaard's role has changed. They want him higher up the field in the half of spaces, but he's not doing it right just yet. I mean, if you look at the way in which he plays, he often finds himself dropping in and linking play because we're not. And I think that comes from like Zubimendi and Rice to a degree, and obviously the centre halves not progressing the ball as efficiently as what he would clearly like, because he's dropping in then to try and get the ball further up the pitch. In those first, if you rewatch the first 30 minutes of Sunday's game, he was so heavily involved in all of the good that we did in those 30 minutes, as was Saka, as was Leo, as was Jesus, as was Rice and Zubimendi. But it was almost felt kind of forced at times, and we need to play with that conviction and courage and bravery to make it more natural. And hopefully we see that at Leeds on Saturday, but obviously tonight is really important that we get a result. Some people have said to me that they don't care about tonight's game. If you don't care about tonight's game, cool. You're entitled not to care. You know, come back on Saturday. But I think it's important that Arsenal do respond in this game. I think it's important Arsenal have a good performance. I think it's important that we give minutes to some players that need minutes and that they show what they can give. You know, especially Madueke, he had a really disappointing cameo on Sunday. And I think it's important for Eze to have a really good game as well. Sooty says, Tom, if you had 100 million to sign a left winger in the summer, who would you choose at the present moment? If I had 100 million pounds, I'd probably sign Julian Alvarez. That's probably what I would do. I'd probably sign Julian Alvarez, not because only he can play at centre forward, but he can also play in those wide areas. But if I had 100 million, I'd probably go and sign Julian Alvarez. Personally. So he wouldn't necessarily be a left winger, but I'd sign Alvarez. And I think then I'd utilise whatever money's left and add some more to it to go and get like a Kenan Yildiz or somebody like that to give Arsenal a little bit more flair on that left-hand side and a little bit more unpredictability. Lynn says, in my humble opinion, the only player he feels safe with is Saka, and that is what makes him so predictable. Surely he should switch it so other players can be involved. Well, the thing is, Lim, is that if we think about those games that Odegaard was most impactful in that kind of 3-game period when he just came back from injury and he scored and he got 2 assists, he was combining with other players. He was combining with Zubimendi when Zubimendi scored against Aston Villa. If we think about his assist against Bournemouth, he was combining with Declan Rice before his strike. In that game, he trusted, Rice screamed for that pass and he got that pass and he scored that goal. So he does trust other players. He does trust others. Of course, there's definitely a strong connection with Saka, no doubt. That can't be in question. But yeah, that's really, really key. Really, really key. Ola says, you said we will have a conversation about Zubi. What conversation do you want to have about Zubi? James says, Alvarez over Barcola. The problem with Barcola, and I love Barcola, I love his ability, I love his skill, I love his quality. It's just, does Barcola have the finishing quality? Does Barcola have the efficiency? Or is he going to be another player that lacks that final decision? That's what I struggle with. You know, Desiree Doué, on the other hand, who's got his injury issues, and that's been kind of his crux this season, Doué, is that he's not been able to play enough games. But he's come back in the last 4 appearances for PSG. He's got 2 goals and assist in those 4 appearances. He played a half of one of them, got a goal, started the next 2, scored in one, got an assist in the other, and then came off the bench against Auxerre. Like Desiree Doué, I think would be up there with a player that I'd look to sign if he was available as well. I'd rather Doué over Barcola if I had to choose between the 2 of them. Dank says, hey Tom, we have a slight passing issue. I find many players under relatively no pressure caught in 2 minds when they play a pass. And when that happens, we intend to overhit or underhit the pass. I think it happened in the game against United after we scored. We lost confidence for some reason. We scored, and then the game plan just kind of fell apart. And obviously, I think that comes from mistakes. You know, we were making some misplaced passes, and Burma got in behind, and Fernandez had that shot, and then Zubimendi makes that mistake. And that adds pressure. That adds doubt in players' minds. Arteta addressed it yesterday. He said, because of the way that we play, that mistake for Zubimendi is going to happen at times. You know, those mistakes are going to creep into your game. It's about hopefully they're not costing you, but unfortunately, it did cost us in that game. That's just the way that we play. So, yeah, difficult. But I hope that we can rediscover the confidence, the composure, and the conviction, which are all the words that needed to be used yesterday. Kai says, if we go 8-8, how big of an achievement is it? And how often do you think it'll be repeated? What's 8-8? Sorry, Kai. I'm not following. It's one of those problems where I do a show every morning at 8 a.m. and I'm missing what is clearly obvious and what so many people are seeing as well. So let me know what you mean. Gary says, if we don't win the title this season, which players get sold? Again, Gary, we'll cross that bridge. I don't tend to answer questions. 8 wins from 8 in the Champions League. Oh, sorry, I see. How big of an achievement is it to win 8 wins from 8 in the Champions League? And how often do you think it'll be repeated? I think it could be repeated. Certainly. I mean, Liverpool were very close to it last season. You know, they only rotated a lot of players against their PSV, I think it was, in their final game. They could have easily won 8 from 8 as well. So I think it will happen. I think it will happen relatively regularly. But it's more about the reward now, isn't it? It's about what it gets you. It gets you those second leg home games. So it's a good achievement. It shows you our competency in Europe and how good we are in Europe, how good we can be. It sends a bit of a message, but it's nothing to, you know, it's not a trophy. So, but it's just good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to have. I just hope that Arteta doesn't reference it like he has done some other things. I think sometimes Arteta tends to kind of lean on some records a bit too much when obviously there's a bigger picture. And I know he's only using that to defend his position, but I hope that he doesn't use that. Lynn says, I cannot understand why Zubimendi is getting so much criticism. He's been a terrific influence with the other teammates this season. Lynn, the reason why Zubimendi gets criticism from some, and it's not all, because if we're being, you know, sensibly, we know he's been the best signing of the season. Anyone sensible knows that. But because he's quite an Arteta-style player, if people aren't fans of Mikel, then they tend not to be fans of Zubimendi either. It's obviously, for me, a significant upgrade on Partey from last season. And he has upgraded that number 6 position. It's no doubt in my mind why having him in the team has been able to go as far as we have in certain competitions already and to be where we are in the Premier League. But some people just, there's 2 schools of thought. There's obviously a bit of a cult following behind Partey that I think affects it. And there's also, I think, the dislike some have towards Arteta. And he's a very Arteta player. And I think that plays into it as well. Let's go to Minnie, who says, Tom, is Cunha dancing at the Emirates still living rent-free like it is in my head, like Lingard's was? Also, we have always been a team sharing goals. I'm more concerned with our defence. What do you think? Yeah, look, the defence is a concern. Absolutely. Yes, I think the attacking side of things has always been a concern, but we've been able to rely and lean on our defence quite a lot, and it started to crack. And when your best and strongest asset starts to go away from you, that's a bit of a worry. Absolutely a bit of a worry. Finley says Saka's form might be the reason for our form. Everything goes through him. It's going forward by his high standards. He's been well off it, 100%. We need more from Saka. It's definitely in part to do with the way the opposition sets up, but we do need more from him. There's no question about that. We do need more from him. I didn't agree with Jamie Carragher's analysis about kind of like, you look at the previous winners with Salah, with Haaland. Like Salah's he's not having a great season with Liverpool this year. It's barely being spoken about. But because Arsenal are top, Saka's being a bit off it. Saka's getting a lot more focus. I personally think Salah should be in far more focus than Saka this season. But it is what it is. Football Win says, I think your opinion on Partey is clouded by off-field reasons. Well, I don't think so. I think I've been very consistent about how I feel about Zubimendi. For me, he is significantly a better player for Arsenal than Partey was. So, no, I don't think it's clouded by that at all. I judge the players purely on the football that I see, nothing else. I'm purely talking about it. I think your vision is probably clouded by that aspect, and assuming that it's clouding mine, it's not. I'm purely talking about it from a football reason. D says Zubi reads the game on a different level. Watch the way that he scans and influences the opposition decisions in his favour. He's like a Jedi in that defensive midfield role. Plus, he can play through the lines brilliantly. Freddie says Salah has barely been talked about. Don't you remember the Carragher thing like a month ago? It was all that was talked about. He's been hammered. I don't think he's been hammered, Freddie, at all. It was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because I remember the thing that month ago because it went viral, but that went viral because of what Dave Jones said. When Jamie Carragher said what he said about Salah, it was kind of just a Jamie Carragher thing. And then ultimately, Dave Jones completely destroyed him when he said, well, 2 weeks ago, you said his legs had gone. So it was kind of just a bit of a viral clip. Overall, he has not been judged anywhere near as much as Saka has, even though for me, he's been far worse than Saka. UBZ says, I love Arteta's reassuring tone when he spoke about the meeting he had with his team, needing to cool the temperature and let the team and the fans know that they should embrace the position that they are in. Absolutely. I thought it was really important they added that a bit about the fans, the end, when he said, I'm hoping that everybody that is related to the club, especially our supporters, jump on that boat. I wrote the piece the other day. Arsenal has never needed the Emirates more than it does now. Arsenal needs us. It needs the fans. It needs everybody behind them. It doesn't need people setting upon them when they play a misplaced pass. It doesn't need people booing at full time when we're top of the league. It needs resilience. It needs the right mentality. I've got my fears, absolutely. So, yeah, not for me. It needs to be better than it has been. And I think that was pointed, what he said yesterday. Tom says, should we start Jesus at left wing or Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield? No, I don't want to put square pegs in round holes. And I know some people think that that's not that. But I want to see Martinelli playing. I want to see Eza playing. I want to see Havertz playing. I want to see White playing at right back because Salmon needs to get some minutes in the second half. I've no problem with him coming on the second half. But these games are important to give players that aren't playing regularly more minutes so that when we need them, they're ready. That's what these games are about. It's not just about playing the kids from the start because he should get some minutes absolutely late on. But these games are about making the players that we need ready at the points of the season where we're going to need them. Derek says, hi, mate. Do you think City will be changed to 19th? Also, is the handbrake coming off now? I feel like we've held back. I feel like it's been, a psychological handbrake, definitely. I feel that's fair. Arteta was really kind of hating that point of view on the handbrake side of things. He'd been kind of labelled at him before. But, look, I'm hopeful that now that's going to start to release and we can play with a bit more conviction, as we've been talking about. But do I think City will get demoted? I don't know. We won't get the outcome of that beyond this season, it sounds like now. So, and I in some ways, I'm kind of glad. I want Arsenal to win against City before any judgments made on the 115 allegations. So, I'm kind of, in some ways, I'm a little glad about that. Mark says, don't our tactics, feeding Saka on the right touchline, force him to be one-dimensional, especially since his pace has dropped post-injury? I don't think Saka's been one-dimensional. Saka often is really good at doing two things really well, which is to go to that byline on his right foot and find those cutbacks or those crosses, take players on, even score. Think about Sunderland. or, of course, go on his left foot and cut inside. But we just haven't seen the space afforded to him of late. I remember at the start of the season, we were talking about how Gyökeres was kind of taking attention away from Saka. Well, that's not been happening of late. He's not scored in, 13? Something like that from open play. So something needs to change, because whatever we were talking about regarding kind of the profile of striker taking defenders away from Saka, it's not having enough of an impact that we're seeing Saka then deliver more consistently. So that's why, look, I'm putting a lot of stock in Kai. I need to see Kai play tonight. We need to see Kai involved again. Hopefully that will happen. Frank says Saka's pace has lessened since his injury. Saka has lost a yard of pace, 100%. I think he's playing with an element of apprehension and fear. I think that shows in his game 100%. D says Saka has been the opposite. He's found the outside this season and gone to the line so much more than he has in previous seasons. That's what I'm saying here. Arthur says, somehow I didn't hear people booing on Sunday. I don't know how. Yeah, so many people didn't hear it, but then so many people did hear it. So, it's, I guess maybe it's just where people's attentions were. At full time, I'd finished what I was doing work-wise, so I was really kind of paying attention to the reaction, and there was quite a significant amount of boos. We also had quite a lot of people walk past the press box very angry in their reactions and what they were shouting and saying, so maybe I heard it more. Martin says, Tom, given the negative energy from the Emirates crowd, do you think playing away is maybe a bit of an advantage? I'll be honest with you, I am quite glad our next league game is away from home. Our away fans are brilliant. They are brilliant. On the most part, they are absolutely fantastic. They support the team throughout the game. I don't think I've ever heard them boo after a result that didn't go our way. Our away fans are very dedicated, brilliant supporters, and always support the team so well away from home. So, I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of glad that our next league game is away from home. Jabu says, Tom, do you see us playing Zubi and Norgaard in the same lineup? It's time to tweak the lineup. Maybe in some games, but do I see it at the moment? Probably the honest answer is no. Arteta's not really giving Norgaard too many opportunities. So I guess the obvious answer is no. It's difficult to give him opportunities when you've got a player as good as Zubi. But the difference is that I think Zubi should probably be brought off in certain games and Norgaard brought on, or Rice brought off and Norgaard brought on, and those partnerships need to be formed better. So, yeah, look, we'll see him tonight, 100% guaranteed. Rice and Marino are suspended. So, yeah, Norgaard will be playing tonight. And I look forward to that. I thought he spoke really well yesterday. Really, really well, particularly on Martin. I thought he spoke really, really well on him. So, yeah, definitely. Lynn says, Tom, some of our fans don't take into consideration how many decisions we have got against us this season. For example, 2 pens weeks back and then back-to-back. There haven't been any other examples. I don't really want to talk about refs too much this season. I don't think referees should dictate whether Arsenal win the league or not. It's why I've not really gone too in on the decisions. I'm kind of leaning. I hear you. I empathise with you. I get you. I get the energy there. But for me, Arsenal should be winning this league regardless of what decisions go for or against them this season. They should be taking the games out of the referee's hands and winning it regardless. Like, Forest, a lot of talk about that penalty decision against Ola Aina. For me, we should be winning that game regardless of that decision. So that's kind of where my head's at. But I do empathise with people like yourself, Lynn, who are frustrated about the referees. But for me, it's not. It's never this season going to be enough to be an excuse. Injuries as well. Like, there are no excuses for me. Like, for us, for any Arsenal fan this season. Arsenal have to win the league this season. They have to win the league this season. And that's what's putting the pressure on us, isn't it? That's what's dialing up the pressure on all of us, on the team and the mentality. It's, can they cope with that? We knew that was going to happen. We knew that was the case. We know that that's the reality. When I talk about the fans, as I did the other day, that doesn't take away. That's not blaming the fans. That's certainly not what I was doing or what I was saying the other day. What I'm saying is that ultimately we need to see, we need to see a reality where Arsenal has the best environment around them to succeed. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Enjoy the game tonight if you're going, and travel well and be safe. And as always, up the Arsenal.